But where I want to start talking about it was Tom O'Neill and Vincent Bugliosi. How he started because he kind of catches Vincent Bugliosi in a lie in his first interview.
Should explain who he is, too.
I should explain who he is. So Vincent Bugliosi is Charles Manson's prosecutor. So he was
just general piece of shit.
And a general terrible person. So Vincent Bugliosi, he prosecuted Charles Manson, and basically he's caught in two different things. So one, Terry Melcher was a music producer who owned the Sharon Tate house before Roman Polanski and Sharon Tate. And when Terry Melcher was on the stand, he basically said he only had met Charles Manson maybe 3 times, and he never met him after the murders, because the motive for why they chose that house was that Charles Manson wanted to instill fear into Terry Melcher. He wanted Terry Melcher to immediately think like, oh, that used to be my house, so I must be in danger. But according to eyewitness testimony, Terry Melcher had visited Charles Manson 3 times after the murders.
Terry Melcher was the Beach Boys producer.
He was
right?
the Beach Boys producer. Yes.
And that's how
he
Manson...
was. Well, he was also just like a huge music producer at the time, like in general.
And that would explain why Manson knew.
Manson
Dennis
knew
Wilson
him. Manson knew Terry Melcher through Dennis Wilson of the Beach Boys. Right. So Manson knew Dennis Wilson because Dennis Wilson picked him up hitchhiking. He picked him up hitchhiking, and Manson was like, hey, I got all these girls. Dennis Wilson was also very into the hippie movement. He's like, we got these girls, we got LSD. And Manson kind of lives at Dennis Wilson's house for a little bit. This is like in late 68, like early 69, after Charles Manson leaves San Francisco. He's living at Dennis Wilson's house. Dennis Wilson becomes afraid of who Manson is. And
that's weird.
Yeah, no, he seems
he
like
giving off like
he seems like a
vibes
totally like reasonable dude. Yeah, exactly. So Dennis Wilson, instead of even like kicking Charles Manson out because he's so afraid of him, he just leaves his house, and he leaves the house to Manson. And then not that long afterwards...
Imagine the effect you have to have on someone where they're like, you know what, dude, just fucking keep the house.
Well, he was a creepy dude. He was into acid. I had a bunch of underage chicks. I don't know. He was a gross guy. But it's not that long afterwards he goes to Spawn Ranch. And
what's Spawn Ranch for the people?
So Spawn Ranch is where Manson and his family were staying while the murders were being committed.
Gotcha.
It was kind of his base of operations. Maybe he had a stockpile of guns. He had a stockpile of different drugs. They were kind of running an auto theft operation out of it,
like an organized crime family.
It is kind of organized crime, and you look at like the similarities of how the
Charles Manson's really Italian.
Yeah, but you look at how Charles Manson was treated by law enforcement. It's not that dissimilar to how informants of organized crime are treated by law enforcement.
Why don't you expand upon that? We were talking the other day about the idea of upper echelon informants.
Yes. So, the FBI, I know we said that Charles Manson specifically was working for the CIA, but when you consider that with Chaos and with COINTELPRO, CIA and the FBI had similar goals, and they went about achieving those goals in similar way, we can assume that kind of what goes for the FBI goes for the CIA. So we're looking at people like Whitey Bulger, who committed multiple murders. He was a known drug dealer. He was a known pedophile. and the Boston FBI let him get away with this because he
Whitey Bulger, the famous crime boss in the Boston area. Yeah. I mean, the Winter Hill Gang.
Yeah.
Essentially a form of Boston Irish mob, you would kind of consider it, right?
You can kind of consider it.
Although Flemmy was Italian, so...
Well, there were, not to get into Whitey Bulger too much, there were kind of two different Irish mob groups in Boston, and then they kind of formed under one group called the Winter Hill Gang.
Right.
Whitey Bulger and Stephen Flemmy, they both become FBI informants kind of at this... Stephen Flemmy first and then Whitey Bulger afterwards. And then they rat out everybody above them in the Winter Hill Gang and basically take over the gang. But since he was providing information against the Italian mafia, they basically let Whitey Bulger do whatever he wanted.
Right, and the connection to the Chaos book being that seemingly a lot of the actions of law enforcement in California as it pertains to Charles Manson sort of echoes what you would consider to be an upper echelon informant, meaning someone who's essentially worth more to law enforcement on the street than behind bars.
Exactly. You look at so many people. You look at Greg Scarpa in Brooklyn, who
Colombo?
He was part of the Colombo crime family. Greg Scarpa was a drug dealer. He was once asked, how many people have you killed? And he said, I stopped counting at 50. So we know
that's reasonable.
Yeah.
You're going to start to forget after a certain point.
Well, yeah. I mean, you want it to haunt you.